Unit 38, that's a 10-1, the TAC 36. Copy, that's 1 item 4, show us on route, ETA 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Running Code, the podcast where you, the listener, get to know a little bit more about us, the men and women of the Newport News, Virginia Police Department. Hello, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Superbly well, thank you. Forgive my voice. I was out yesterday, so I'm sounding a little rough. My apologies to the folks watching it.
A little under the weather.
I was yesterday, but I'm feeling much better today.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Got an interesting guest today. We always have interesting guests, but this one fascinates me in many ways. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, this one should be good. Sarge, you want to tell everybody who you are?
I'm Sergeant Andrew Liu. Been with the police department for just over 17 years.
All right. And can we call you Andrew?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Sounds good. So, Andrew, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I actually grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia. I moved to Connecticut for a little bit because of my dad's job. Came back here for college, went to William & Mary, and then I got my first job, moved to Norfolk. I did security clearance investigations for a government contractor. I actually worked with Skip Blanchard, and then I joined the Newport News Police Department.
Interesting. So you met Skip how?
So we got hired together, and that's how I first met Skip. Found out he was, I believe, a former Portsmouth PD. Then he worked for a lawyer. And then one day he says, I'm out. I'm going back to police work. So I'd always been kind of interested in it. I overheard the Norfolk PD on the radio saying they do all their testing in one day. And that's where I was going to go. But I gave him a call. I said, hey, Skip, where'd you go? It's like, Newport News. Why'd you go to Newport News? He said, well, they got the best benefits and pay. So I was like, okay, I'm sold. So I applied.
and that is how the history of your career began.
That's a good reason.
Now, what were you and Skip doing together? What kind of work?
We did security clearance investigations. So we did, military bases, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He just retired yesterday. His ceremony was yesterday.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I missed it. My apologies to you, Skip. I wanted to be there, sir.
I'm sure he'll understand.
Yeah.
So William & Mary, we're going to forgive you for that one, but tell us a little bit about William & Mary.
I double majored in government and interdisciplinary studies Chinese. Honestly, one of the reasons why I went to William & Mary, one of our high school, I guess, summer projects was you had to apply to a college. And so I did the essays for William & Mary and ended up getting accepted based on those essays. Wow. And of all the colleges I got accepted to, that was the highest ranked and in-state, which was the big thing for my parents. So that's why I ended up going to William & Mary.
Nice.
Wow. And so because of the studies, must one be bilingual?
No. So part of the study is not only understanding the language. I did take the language courses, but also doing like the politics, the history, and stuff like that.
So you speak Chinese?
I do, but it's degraded over the years because I learned it in college. My parents speak actually two different dialects. My mom speaks Cantonese and my dad speaks Taiwanese, which is close to Cantonese. But growing up, I mean, we spoke a little bit at home, but traditionally, usually Chinese kids would go to like Chinese school. But at the time, Williamsburg didn't really have as big of a diversity, and so there wasn't a Chinese school to go to, and they kind of wanted us to speak English, be more Americanized. So we spoke mostly English at home. I remember growing up using some of the words we used in school, and people would just kind of look at us, and it took me a while to understand, they don't know what that means. So
wow. So you study these two subject matters, and then you end up going into law enforcement. Like, why that shift?
So I'd always been kind of interested in law enforcement. I guess it kind of, if I could trace it back to my dad and I would always love watching the cheesy sci-fi shows and on the Sci-Fi Channel, sci-fi movies. He kind of got me interested in all that. And then a show came out called X-Files that we watched together. And so that's where I got introduced to law enforcement, the FBI and all that stuff. And it took a while to figure out that they didn't actually investigate aliens per se. But that's kind of how I got interested in it. And then, of course, we watched a bunch of movies, buddy cop movies, Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon, all that stuff.
Wow.
So that kind of, got me interested in law enforcement. And kind of growing up, they've always kind of put an emphasis of like public service, giving back, and pretty much emphasizing how fortunate we were to grow up in the United States versus back in China. So,
wow. So you go to college, and while you're in college, you attend ROTC.
Yes.
So you had aspirations of becoming a military member.
Yeah, and at the time, 9/11 was still fresh. The war had just kicked off, and I had done ROTC. It was kind of on a whim. One of my, suite mates in college freshman year, he did ROTC, and he was actually on a scholarship for, I believe, soccer. And so I asked him about it, so I ended up just kind of joining it, and they offered me a scholarship after my second year. So I signed a contract, and when I went to their medical board, they pretty much said I was blind as a bat. So
Wow.
I applied for a waiver. When I talked to, at the time, it was Colonel DeCamp, who was our in charge of everything. He said, just don't worry about it, you should be fine. But then they came back and said, no.
Wow. That must have been extremely disappointing for you.
It was disappointing for me, but my parents were pretty happy.
That you didn't go into the service for obvious reasons.
And their loss, our gain, right?
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. So I noticed that when I was reviewing some of the notes for this podcast here, that you have a few years under your belt, and you've done a few things in the years that you've been here. How long have you been here total?
So just over 17 years.
Wow.
So.
And what have you done along the way?
So I began my career at North Watch 2, and then I ended up getting a property crimes investigation, so a precinct detective. So worked that a couple years. I actually went to polygraph school, and at polygraph school, I met a special victims detective from Pittsburgh, and we had a lot of conversations, and that's where it cut, because I never thought about going to SVU. And then right after polygraph school, an announcement came out for major crimes, and so I put in for it. I remember at the time, Sergeant Hahn said, why do you want to go to SVU? So I told him, explained to him what happened. I ended up getting picked up for SVU, did that for just over 4 years. Then I went to the Intel Surveillance Unit. Intel Surveillance Unit kind of merged into the Fugitive Unit. And then shortly after, I joined the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, did that for a little bit before I got promoted, went to corporal, and then got promoted to sergeant, and then got put on, I was initially on midnights as a corporal, then got put to watch 2, and now I'm on watch 1.
Wow. So you've done the tour.
All over the place.
Now, were you in SVU as well, Mo?
No, I never. It takes a special type of detective to do that, and I knew that just wasn't for me, but kudos to you. That's it. Was it a tough assignment for you?
I would say it definitely needs people that are passionate about it to do the work. It was probably the most stressful time in my career, but also the most rewarding. So
Yeah, and unfortunately, you investigated some terrible crimes against children.
Yes.
And that probably leaves a very long, lasting impression on you.
Absolutely.
Throughout your career, and probably motivate you to work harder for children, to get that justice. Because you speak for them, correct?
Correct. I mean, it definitely puts in perspective. It actually helps a lot with the patrol stuff, especially when we do a lot of domestics, understanding the cycle of violence. And I know a lot of patrol officers kind of get frustrated about going to the domestics over and over and over again. And then sometimes I think we kind of remove ourselves a little bit from the calls for service, but it truly understands that, hey, these are people, and that there's more to it, and unless you've been in a situation like that, it's hard to understand and put yourself in their shoes. So,
right, a lot of sympathy for victims of domestic violence, both children and adults. It's a terrible cycle. So, you also you failed to mention, because I know you're not the braggadocious type, but you've also been a SWAT member.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I've been on the Tactical Operations Unit for about over 13 years. I started off, at the time we had 2 separate teams, so reactionary and entry. Started on the reactionary team, then made the entry team, was kind of the rear guard assigned, drove the Bearcat for a while as well. Eventually I was put on the Shield because I have the good attributes for that. My short stature and stuff was very beneficial. did that, and eventually, after I got promoted, I got moved to a team leader position when one was open.
Wow. So you've done a lot of interesting things, and you've probably made a lot of sacrifices, because those units sound like they're tough. They're tough to work
Very
with.
time consuming.
Yeah.
They keep you pretty busy, huh?
Oh yeah, I work a lot.
Yeah, and not only do you work a lot, but you also work out a lot. I know that physical fitness is a big part of your life.
Absolutely. So I do teach a lot at the academy. One of the things I teach is DT. One of the things we emphasize is physical health. You know, regardless of whether or not you practice martial arts or continue, like at the very least, being physically fit is very, very important, especially in this line of work. There's nothing worse than chasing after somebody and you can't keep up or your partner can't keep up, right? And so, you know, that's one of the things. And unfortunately, with our type of lifestyle in police work, depending on the shift work or whatnot, it sometimes can be hard to, want to have that motivation to work out. And then especially depending on the shift, you know, you might eat really bad. And so like throughout your career, it might be easy to start working out, but then as the further along you get in your career, sometimes you let that stress and everything else take over. But it's one of those things we try to emphasize, especially with new recruits, that it's one of those lifestyle changes that you kind of need to keep out throughout your career.
Right, maintain it, if you will. So, Melissa, did you know that the good sergeant has family members that work in law enforcement as well?
I do. So
Yeah. I did not know.
All right,
I have
did my homework.
a cousin that's with NYPD, and then I have another cousin who works for Georgia State Police. He's part of their investigations bureau. It's funny because he kind of does it part-time. I say that because he owns a business with his wife working in animal hospital, and so he also he initially started with Savannah Metro, and then when they opened up the business, he kind of left law enforcement for a little bit, but then he got drawn back in. So
now, interesting that you mentioned animals, because I know that you love your work, you love working out, love your family, but you also have a puppy that you love.
I have 2 English bulldogs. One's named Titan. He's just over 10 years old, and he's an old man now. He sleeps all day.
Well, what age exactly does old man? Let's qualify that.
Well, typically,
I don't know if you want that answer.
typically bulldogs live around 8, 9, 10 years old. And then my other bulldog is named Xiao Bao. He is he's like 2.5 years old, and that's means little bun in Chinese.
Wow. And I got a chance to meet one of the 2 puppies at the police academy.
Correct.
And a real love bug. Love the belly rubs. I mean, just gentle as can be.
Yeah. He has assisted me on police work several times, especially when I was in Intel, and where he was basically my cover for action, especially whenever we would do like GPS installs and stuff like that. So he would come along with me.
Now that's
Partners.
pretty cool. Right, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. Wow.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are you looking forward to? You've got 17 in. You got a few more to do. What is up? What's going on?
Honestly, I was a detective most of my career. I'd love to be in charge of an investigative unit. Do that. Maybe go to training, and eventually put in for lieutenant. So
Now, you have a passion for training.
Yes, I do.
You're teaching as often as you can.
Yep. I teach firearm, shield, building searching, defensive tactics,
Wow.
surveillance, and intelligence.
So with all this work that you do and the commitment that you have, what do you do in your off-duty time to try to decompress and relax?
Other than work out.
Yeah, other than work out, right?
I'm a big gamer. I also go and train jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, Krav, and judo at 5 Crow in Hampton. I also am a big nerd. I like to cosplay, make my own costumes. I go to Comic-Con. The biggest one I went to is New York Comic-Con. I also do a lot of the local cons here, like Galaxy Con and stuff like that.
Have you been by any chance, Melissa?
I have not, but I've seen some of the footage and stuff coming. What kind of costumes are we talking here? Because they can kind of get kind of extravagant, right?
They can get kind of extravagant. To be honest, like a lot of the times lately, because I haven't that much time, I'll usually buy something and throw something together at home.
Gotcha.
My sewing capabilities are not the greatest. So,
Right. And I've been to the Virginia Beach Comic-Con with my son and wife a couple of times. And I have to tell you, it is one of the most fascinating events I've ever been to. And you're right. There's a lot of money spent on costumes, and a lot of these costumes are created by the folks wearing them.
Right.
But it is super fascinating, the commitment that they have to living that lifestyle. They firmly believe in what they're doing. I think it's incredibly wonderful, and there's such joy there. I saw Batman and Robin with Batgirl, and the detail in the costumes is like movie-like. It's unreal. It's unreal. Now, when you go, do you dress in costume?
I do, absolutely. That's
What's
part
your
of the fun.
What's your favorite costume?
That's a hard one. I wore a fat suit once and was Peter Griffin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then
Family Guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I was a ninja from Naruto. Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop.
Wow. So you've done a couple.
I feel like he could have kept going for a while.
Yeah, I have a feeling as well. So, well, let's
Very
check in with
cool.
Matt. Matt, how you doing over there?
Doing well. I think we need to dig up some photos here of
Yeah,
Sarge
you think you can
and,
supply us with some?
I agree. I would
What do you
love
think,
to
Andrew?
see
Can you
some
do that?
photos.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
It was the slow yes.
Yeah, that's so you have 8 more years, right? And then you're eligible for retirement. Can you see yourself retiring 8 years, or are you so passionate that you feel like you'll continue on?
I would like to retire at 25.
Okay.
Now, realistically, I'd probably get another job in law enforcement related field. But I would like to retire at 25.
So having said that, if you met someone today that was interested in joining this police department, what would you tell them to prepare for that journey?
Kind of the same thing we kind of tell recruits. It's one of those jobs, kind of like the military, where it's hard to explain something until you experience it. I would say to physically and mentally prepare yourself, especially the time commitment, and then truly understand the reason of why. Why do you want to join law enforcement? Yeah, it's a job, but that's why it's one of those things where you're never truly off duty. Like if we see someone hurt and someone in need when we're off, we're not just going to stand by and let that happen. So it's one of those things where, truly understanding the time commitment and the passion for law enforcement and understanding, because everything going around in the nation and quite frankly, the world with law enforcement and the career, all the things that have come up over the past few years, we need people that are dedicated and passionate about the job and truly understand the sacrifices as well as the commitment and that the public trust that we have, and the amount of power that we have over everybody, that we truly understand the law and what we're asked to do.
Wow. And so I think that begs the question, since it's such a tough career and you've dealt with some of the most violent, vicious crimes against children, what keeps you coming in every day, having seen and heard some of the most terrible things?
Well, a lot of problems with, I guess, especially in like patrol work, sometimes we don't necessarily see the outcome of like the results of our cases, but in general, my time as a detective, I was able to see the cases from start to finish all the way through. And, every now and then, you'll have someone come up to you and you say, hey, and of course the initial reaction is, who is this individual? Did I arrest them? What's going on? Right. But every now and then you'll have a victim come up to you and thank you, and it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
The understanding that you are actually making an impact on individuals and helping people out.
Yeah, and Melissa, we talked about it. You've received that on a couple occasions as well.
It's always very fulfilling, very motivating.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree, and even if we didn't receive that, we'd continue on. Right,
Still
the mission
do it every day.
would continue. So, how are we doing
Absolutely.
on time, sir?
I think we can move on to rapid fire
I'm
if Sarge
excited.
is ready for it.
You ready?
Sure.
All right, after you, Melissa.
Well, I'm really excited about the first one.
Me too. Me too.
Especially after the conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, you ready?
Sure.
All right. Favorite video game?
Rainbow Six, the original Rainbow Six games.
Wow, you knew so quickly.
That did not take long
That
at
did
all.
not take long at all. That was rapid. That was rapid. Do you have any, Melissa?
Now, when my kid watches this, he's going to be like, Mom, I can't think of anything that I would say would be my favorite. I'm
Okay.
an old head when
All
it comes
right.
to video
Maybe
games.
Frogger or something?
So, listen, not that
Pac-Man?
old. Not
Pac-Man.
that old. Don't do that to me. Do not do that.
No?
I'm thinking like Earthworm and Jim. Like, most people aren't
Oh,
even going to know
gosh.
what that is.
I
but
don't even know.
I loved Earthworm and Jim for some reason. I think it
Really?
was... Yeah,
I
I think it was a Sega game, as a matter of fact.
I think it was on Sega Super Nintendo. It's kind of like a platformer shooter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I played on. I remember playing on the Super Nintendo, but it was pretty hard.
I know neither. Neither I know. But mine would be Galaga. Do you, by any chance, are you familiar with that? No. You do. You're familiar with that? Okay. Great game. Simple, but a lot of fun for me. Yeah, I'm limited in my skill level on video games. So dine in or take out?
I prefer takeout. I like to sit at home and with my dogs.
Yeah?
So, yep.
And just no hurry.
Correct.
You don't have to clear that table. There's nobody waiting for it. Take your time. How about you then, Melissa?
I'm a dine-in. I'm on this soup cooking at home thing
Well,
right now.
And aren't
it
you
is-
kind of on this foodie tour?
Don't do that. It's
We had a guest. Well, anyways.
hard on the pockets. I had
It's
to
hard
slow
on the
back
pockets,
a little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah, I enjoy dining in. Takeout is not a bad thing. It just depends on what we're doing, but mostly dine in because I really enjoy going out with my wife. It's kind of our time, and it's very relaxing. So yeah.
I get another good one for him. This is a good one. Okay. Favorite comic book character?
Gambit.
And who might that be?
He's part of the X-Men.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, man, you're quick. Okay, this is really rapid.
Oh, I love them all. Anything I can communicate with my kid about, you're winning.
Through comics.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's how we talk to each other.
Have y'all ever been to my office and seen some of the artwork I have in
Yes.
there? That
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, I love the artwork.
Don't let Liam in your office.
Oh, I love it.
Don't do it.
I love the Marvel, the DC.
Yes.
The artwork is just
Yeah, it is.
incredible.
It's
But I don't have a favorite comic book character, to
very
be honest with you.
fascinating.
Favorite snack food?
Chips.
Chips, just plain chips.
Doritos.
Okay,
Yeah.
Doritos. All right. Melissa, anything?
I will wrestle a bag of popcorn
Really?
every time I see one.
Well, I used to eat popcorn, and I did enjoy it until my son began working for a dentist's office.
Uh-oh.
And he began to tell me how the popcorn would get caught in your teeth, and now I haven't touched popcorn since.
Oh, you just gotta floss.
Yeah. But however, after he told me I shouldn't eat it, I caught him eating popcorn. So
Because he knows to floss.
he knows to floss. Exactly right. All right. I think we're at the last question, Melissa.
Is that me? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. One to-do item on your bucket list.
Skydiving.
What?
There's no way.
Yeah.
Indoor skydiving, I've
Nah.
done.
Really?
You
wanna jump out of a plane.
A perfectly good plane.
Absolutely. Hey, and if something goes wrong, you're not going to know that much anyway.
Okay. It'll be over sooner than you
It'll
think
be
it
over
will.
soon.
And you'll enjoy it on the way down. Oh, my goodness gracious.
All right.
Anything for you,
Yeah,
Melissa?
continue traveling. I've got a bunch of check marks to put in for my travel.
Same here. I think if it were for me, I would love to visit every state in the United States of America.
Every state.
Literally every state in the United States of America. That would be on my bucket list. But that's a lottery win.
That's a lot of states.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure, Andrew. It's been a real. Thanks for agreeing to do this. It wasn't too bad, was it?
Nah, not at all.
Not at all. Easy peasy. Melissa,
Easy
any
peasy.
words of wisdom?
No, just Google, Yahoo,
Yeah.
YouTube, Facebook.
Yeah, we're on all
Instagram.
platforms. Yeah, and a big thanks to everyone who checks us out every couple of weeks. Big thanks to Matt for doing all the work behind the scenes, and thanks for the guests especially. Cheers, everyone. Be safe.
You know,